Hi, I'm Eric from Stinger. Today we've got this cool ride in the shop because we're bringing you an upgrade for your Challenger. Challenger looks cool, it's fun to drive, and it has some decent equipment from the factory. It has Uconnect, so it has dual USBs in the center console and Bluetooth hands-free calling. So today we're going to show you how to carefully take apart your Challenger so you can plug in a Stinger HEIGH10 multimedia infotainment system. We're going to remove that factory display and we're going to put our 10-inch touchscreen HD display right there between the air vents. That's going to give us a bigger canvas to show that factory reverse camera. This install is plug and play, but requires taking apart a bit of the vehicle. So we rate the install a 3 out of 4 pry tools on our install difficulty scale. So join me as I show you how to upgrade your Challenger and plug in a Stinger HEIGH10 multimedia infotainment unit, adding Android Auto, CarPlay, and lots of other great features to your Challenger. The charger and the Challenger are built very similarly, so if you're taking apart a charger and installing a HEIGH10 in there, this install video should guide you through that process as well.
Before we get started, let's take a look at the tools we'll use on today's install. Pry tool, Phillips screwdriver, flathead screwdriver, ratchet, 8mm socket, 10mm socket, pick tool, snips, zip ties. You may choose to work with a power drill and adapters instead of using the manual tools. To begin the installation, lower the steering wheel to make room to remove the dash trim panel. We're going to remove this entire piece of plastic that surrounds the gauge cluster and radio. Using a nylon pry tool, carefully work your way around the trim bezel, pulling the plastic toward you. Use caution not to damage the soft plastic on the dash. The entire trim bezel will come out as one piece, including the 3 air vents. Pull the plastic toward you and roll it upward to clear the steering wheel. Carefully set this piece aside. Now, using a Phillips screwdriver, remove the 4 screws that hold the display into the vehicle. Remove the display from the dash and disconnect all harnesses by pressing in on the tab, then pulling them out to remove them. The main harness has a locking lever. Press in on the end of the latch and lift the lever to remove the harness. Now we're going to remove the center console. Begin by removing the small insert to the right of the shifter. Now remove the black trim panel that surrounds the shifter. Reach inside the opening and pull up while using a nylon pry tool to pry around the edge. Lifting up this panel gives access to a Torx screw in the shifter, which needs to be backed out. You don't have to completely remove this screw, but it needs to be backed out enough to remove the shift lever. Also be sure to remove the small white 4-pin harness connected to the shift lever. Press in on the small lock tab to pull the connector out to remove it. This may be more easily done with the use of a small pick tool. Now press the button on the shift lever and pull up the shift lever to remove it from the vehicle. Now we're going to remove the large plastic trim panel on the top of the center console. Start by reaching in the opening where the cup holder is and pry up on the back of the center console trim panel. Once the back of the trim panel is unlatched, pull it toward the rear of the vehicle to unlatch the front 2 clips. Disconnect the black connector on the back of the center console. Disconnect the 2 harnesses underneath the center console. It's easier if you first pull on them to unsnap them from the plastic housing. Now remove the 2 Phillips screws in the front of the center console. Remove the 2 bolts that secure the emergency brake into place. Slide the seat back to access the small plastic square on the side of the center console near the bottom. Insert a right-angle pick tool into the small notch at the bottom of this panel to pry it up from the vehicle. Now remove the bolt behind this panel. Then repeat this process on the other side of the vehicle. With these bolts removed, we can now remove the center console, slide it backwards, then lift it up and carefully remove it from the vehicle. Now we're going to take the center console over to the bench so that we can remove the factory USB ports and install our replacement media hub. Assemble the replacement media hub by carefully inserting the cables into the plastic housing. Be sure to remove the plastic covers from the cables before inserting them into the media hub. Removing them after the cables have been installed in the hub is far more difficult. Once all the cables are in place, snap the back onto the media hub to lock them into position. Disconnect the 2 USB cables plugged into the bottom of the USB hub. You may need to use a flathead screwdriver to press in on the 2 locking tabs on each side of the back side of the hub to remove it from the console. Push on the back of the USB hub, then reach inside the center console to completely remove it. Route the free end of the cables from the media hub through the center console. Align the replacement media hub with the opening. Notice there's an alignment tab on the top of the media hub. This will snap into the hole where we removed the original USB hub. Flip the center console over and route the USB and HDMI and aux cables along the factory wiring, using zip ties to secure them along the way. Now assemble the height and harness and dash mounting hardware. Connect the radio harness. Connect into the amplified or non-amplified port depending on your vehicle's original system. This particular vehicle is non-amplified, so we'll use the non-amplified port. Connect the vehicle harness and power harness. Now we're going to assemble the mounting plastics. Grab mounting bucket 1 and mounting bucket 2 and place them together. As you squeeze them, they will snap into place. Then install the 4 silver Phillips screws into these mounting locations to lock the pieces together. Now secure the radio replacement module into the mounting buckets using the supplied zip ties. Pass the zip ties through the mounting locations in the mounting bucket, then through the mounting locations on the radio replacement interface. Trim the excess of the zip ties with the snips. Now connect the 2 HEIGH10 display cables into the back of the brain. Then pass the other ends of these 2 cables through the opening in the mounting buckets. Notice that the front of the mounting bucket is stamped LH for left hand. This is where we will attach the left side bracket and spacer. Find the side bracket stamped with LH. Install the spacer into position C in the mounting assembly. Then place the left-hand side bracket on the spacer, so it aligns with position 1. Grab the 4 large Phillips head screws from the hardware pack included with the HEIGH10 and install 2 of them through the side bracket into the brain of the HEIGH10. Install 2 of the number 8 by 3/4 inch Phillips screws into the side bracket in position 4. Now repeat this process with the side of the bracket labeled RH. Install the spacer and align the bracket and install all 4 screws. Now this assembly is ready for the vehicle, so we can set it aside. Place the HEIGH10 display panel into the display mounting frame. Using the 4 M4x12 screws from the HEIGH10 hardware pack, secure the display into the mounting panel. Now we're done on the bench and we can head back to the vehicle. Now we're going to make CAN bus connections in the vehicle using the CAN bus connection harness. Begin by removing the sail panel on the left side of the dash. Then using a pry tool, remove the 2 tree fasteners that secure the trim panel under the driver's side of the dash. Be sure to disconnect the small harness for the light in this panel. Removing this panel gives us access to the CAN bus connection in the vehicle. Connect the green connector from our CAN bus connection harness into one of the open ports on the white CAN bus connection in the vehicle. Any port is fine. If there are no open ports, simply remove a factory connector that's plugged into the vehicle, plug that into the back of our T-harness, then plug our T-harness back into the vehicle's connector. Now we're going to repeat this process on the passenger side of the vehicle. Using your pry tool, remove the 3 tree fasteners that secure this trim panel under the passenger side of the dash, below the glove box. Again, be sure to disconnect the small harness that connects to the light on this panel. Route the white CAN bus connector on the harness through the dash opening and behind the glove box down to the factory CAN bus connector location. There's a long green CAN bus connector with white plugs. Insert the connector from our CAN bus harness into the factory connector. Using a nylon pry tool, carefully run the cable down the weather stripping along the A-pillar. Then pass the 3.5mm connector through the opening in the dash and route it behind the dash to the opening for the radio. Then reinstall the sail panel on the left side of the dash. Now grab the GPS antenna and magnetic plate that came from the HEIGH10 packaging. Stick the GPS antenna onto the metal plate. Place this inside the dashboard, where it has no metal above it. There's a space right above the air vent. Then, to follow MECP best practices, we're going to try to cancel as much magnetic interference as possible. We're going to loop the cable into a circle, then twist it into a figure 8. Now we zip tie the wire to itself. Tuck this cable bundle inside the dash, leaving enough cable to connect to the HEIGH10. Route the cables from the media replacement hub through the center console up to the opening in the dash. Carefully move the center console back into position. Find a suitable mounting location for your chime speaker. There's a large wire harness that runs right through the dash. You can secure the chime speaker to this harness using some zip ties. Now we will connect the harnesses to the HEIGH10. Assure that the green parking brake wires are connected. The harness provides accessory power and ground for adding aftermarket cameras. If you're connecting those cameras, connect their power here. If you're connecting an aftermarket amplifier, connect your remote turn-on lead to the amplifier turn-on wire. Now find the pink wire labeled Speed Sense on the main harness, and connect it to the pink wire labeled Speed Sense on the multi-camera input harness. Then plug the multi-camera input harness into the back of the HEIGH10. Take the small plug labeled Pack Link and plug that into the small port on the Pack Link module. Connect the 10-pin data cable into the Pack Link module. Either port is fine. Find the camera lead labeled Factory Reverse Camera and connect that into the yellow video input labeled Reverse Camera Input. Plug in the small 6-pin steering wheel connector into the HEIGH10. Plug this harness into the back of the HEIGH10. Take the small 2-pin plug from the chime speaker and plug it into the harness labeled Chime. Take the small heat shrunk module labeled RPA VA1 and plug that onto the end of the 6-pin harness labeled Reverse Cam. Connect the CAN bus connection harness 4-pin Molex plug to the 4-pin Molex plug on the main harness. Connect the main power harness into the brain of the HEIGH10. If you've installed the optional external microphone, take the 3.5mm connector and plug it into the receptacle labeled Mic. Then plug this harness's 4-pin connector into the back of the HEIGH10. Connect the vehicle's original radio harness into the main harness and rotate the latch so that it locks into position. Bundle up any extra microphone wire or other wires you have and secure them with zip ties. Connect the black AM/FM antenna adapter into the vehicle's white connector, and plug the antenna adapter into the back of the HEIGH10. If you're retaining satellite radio, plug the blue connector into the blue connector in the vehicle. Then connect the black end into your Sirius XM tuner. If you're installing Sirius, be sure to plug the white harness into the back of the HEIGH10. We're not installing Sirius in this particular vehicle, so we're not connecting this harness. You can use zip ties to clean up any extra wiring so it's more secure inside the dash. Connect the dual USB ports into the HEIGH10. Connect the HDMI cable into the HEIGH10. Connect the aux input cables from the new replacement media hub into the RCA connectors labeled aux in on the main harness. Now carefully work the wiring inside the dash into any open spaces to get the mounting assembly into the vehicle. Notice the word top is stamped into the front of the assembly. Now secure the assembly into the dash using the original 4 screws. Now we'll temporarily connect the HEIGH10 screen and perform a quick function test before we completely reassemble the vehicle. Powering on the vehicle, we can confirm that the HEIGH10 turns on, we get audio through the vehicle, steering wheel controls work, the reverse camera shows when we shift into reverse. Now we can turn the vehicle off, and we can reassemble the vehicle by reversing the steps we took earlier when we took the vehicle apart. After carefully reinstalling the trim bezel and air vents, connect the two heightened display cables into the back of the display. Tuck the cables into the opening in the mounting bucket and place the display against the mounting bracket. Slide the display to the left to lock it into position. Then, install the small black Phillips screw into the right side of the bracket to lock the display into place.
Well, that completes our installation. Now our Challenger is upgraded with a much larger screen, Android Auto, CarPlay, and tons of other awesome features. Take a look at our feature demo video where we show you how we pull information from the Chrysler CAN bus and display it on that awesome 10-inch HD screen. This completes our install video for the Challenger, and this also works for the Charger. We hope you found this video helpful. It's time for me to get out of Dodge.